let's switch over and talk about some scoring droughts, because Bob Grove also had another tweet yesterday, which, by the way, if you're not following Bob Grove, I
Do
don't
it.
know what you're doing with your life. Like, the best stats and tidbits of anybody on Twitter for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, just go check that out. Make sure you give him a follow, because he has a lot of good tidbits. Before the game, he posted 5 players that were on a scoring drought. 2 of them scored last night, one of them being Jeff Carter, who before yesterday's game had 1 goal in 15 games. That was the overtime winner against the Buffalo Sabres. He scored, like we mentioned, last night. And Jason Zucker, who had 1 goal in 14 games. He scored 2 last night, and as we both mentioned, even without scoring, Jason Zucker at least proves to be a competent player and an important player on your roster, even when he's not putting the puck in the back of the net. But there are 3 other players that are in scoring droughts that continued through last night's game. Danton Heinen has scored no goals in 25 games played, 0 goals in over a quarter of an NHL season. He's been out and a healthy scratch for a good bit of time in the middle of that, but still 0 goals in 25 games. Teddy Bluger has 1 goal in his past 20 games. I understand he's a fourth liner, but 1 in 20 is underneath what we're expecting from a guy like Teddy Bluger, somebody that a lot of people, me included, want to see him as the third center on this team. You need to be producing more than that to get that position. And Kasperi Kapanen, who after that hat trick and 4 goals in the first 3 games, once he came back from that long, healthy scratch, has 0 in his last 10. So, Horwat, let me ask you this before we get into it more. Which of these 3 players are going to snap out of their drought first?
Teddy Bluger, mostly because he's the least likely option. That's honestly why, because he's not the one that you're expecting. He's the fourth line center. He's not the one you're expecting to score all the goals, but I feel like he's going to be the one to snap out at first because, I mean, Danton Heinen getting through. I mean, I just went in on why Kasperi Kapanen should have been given more ice time in the third period last night. Danton Heinen should have been given the long ride on the bench for the third. That's just my opinion on it, because in a game like that, I'd rather have Kapanen out there. Speed can do something. He was playing well. He had 2 assists in the first period. He had 2 assists. Drew O'Connor played, I think it was I just put the paper away. I should have kept it out. It was a very small amount of minutes in the first period and scored in his small amount of opportunity. But I'm not even going to look for it. But Kapanen, too, on the fourth line, playing fourth line minutes, wasn't given a ton of opportunity in the first period and collected 2 points somehow. Mm-hmm. Follow that trend. Like Mike Sullivan said in that Calgary shootout win, I just had a gut feeling. Have a gut feeling about someone who's going to produce for you, because right now, Danton Heinen's not the one that can do it. I mean, how many games did you say he hasn't scored in? 29?
25.
25. Well, he's got 29. He's got 10 points in 30 games this season. Well, that's not good enough.
No, not at all. Especially when you consider how many of those were in the first 5 games of the season.
Almost all of them. All 3 of the goals were. The assists, I don't know. But I think Heinen's that one will snap out at least, because at least Kapanen, since his hat trick, I get it's been a ton of games since he scored a goal. He's at least looked a little more confident. He's going to the net a little more. Sometimes things just don't fall your way. But he's like last night, he's picking up a couple of assists. He's helping out. He's utilizing his speed and getting to the areas where scoring happens. Mm-hmm. It's still not ideal, but I think Bluger's going to break out of it just because we actually have faith in him.
Yeah, I'd have to agree that it's going to be Teddy Bluger, but I also think that, honestly, the way that Kapanen's been playing is not great, and I think something had to change on that third line, so I commend Mike Sullivan for making that change and giving Danton Heinen another shot, because Heinen is somebody that I feel like doesn't get enough opportunity under Mike Sullivan, but at the same exact time, I mean, at least his leash isn't long. I'm not going to say he doesn't get any opportunities, but at the same time, the way that he has played, 0 goals in 25 games, 10 points in 30 games this season. He was signed for $1 million, and that's exactly what he's playing like, but that's not what you want. Like, you wanted him to play like the $3 million player that he should have been if he would have signed a qualifying offer, that he would have been if he signed a qualifying offer. And honestly, he probably would have been a $3 million player if he signed anywhere else other than Pittsburgh this season.
Yep.
So Obviously, it's good that Hextall got him for 1 year, $1 million. He can cut bait at the end of the season if he thinks that this is truly what you see from Danton Heinen. But this is not a good look for any of these 5 players, even Jason Zucker. You need to be able to finish more than 1 goal in 14 games, before the Red Wings game. What we saw in that game against the Red Wings, A+. That's what you need to see. Go to the front of the net. That's where he's going to score goals, especially on that second line with Malkin and Brian Rust. You need to be in that net front area, and Jason Zucker has the hands to be able to be a finisher in this league. He scored 20 goals at least 5 times.
Yeah.
All for Minnesota, but he's done it. And I know he's older, but he still has that potential. I think he still has that talent. Jeff Carter, I don't even know what to make of it. Cody Flavel of Inside the Penguins put out a nice piece on that. I know Carter scored last night, but I really don't care. Like, he ended that scoring drought, but at the same time, you're not out of a scoring drought until you can start putting it together on a consistent basis or semi-consistent basis. And we haven't seen that from Carter at all this season. We haven't seen that from Kapanen at all this season. And we haven't seen it from Heinen either. So these 5 guys, but especially those 3, Carter, Heinen, and Kapanen, 3 guys that you expected to be your third line and be a pretty darn good third line at that coming into the season, they're just not meeting expectations. And at this point, you need Poehling and Archibald back. We'll talk about that in the third segment, but you really just need an entirely new third line. And there's different places you can go to get that. You can do it via trade. And I think there's some guys in the pipeline that could come up and give you a little bit more production as well.